Well, why don't we start there, man? Brutal honesty. Why is honesty so important to you? I mean, I know why it is now, publisher, books, etc. But like, how did you fall into the honesty thing? Because not everyone's like that.
Because um I've read enough memoirs for one, and writing a memoir for Chef Curtis Duffy, his memoir Fireproof. When he asked me to write that, um I'd been friends with him for a while, and I asked him what a couple things like when he approached me to write his memoir. He's younger than me, so I'm like, why the hell do you want to write a memoir right now? You're a young guy. Tell me
Yeah.
something I don't know. I've known you for years. And he started telling me about his origins and how brutal it was. I was like, holy cow. I'm like, I'm in, and with what he told me is really in line with like one of the best blurbs we got from the Ford Fireproof from author named Peter Blauner, New York Times bestselling author who I really love his work. He gave us a blurb that said something like Fireproof is like Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential meets Sons of Anarchy, or
Mm,
vice versa. Sons of Anarchy meets Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential. So that's true because with the way Curtis was brought up was so brutal, and the way he persevered and what he's achieved in life was incredible. So to that end, Christopher, my angle was circling back to what I said about I've read a lot of memoirs that bored me to tears, or like
mm,
people are, don't want to give any dirt or admit anything that maybe they're, not proud of, or maybe it's traumatic, for them and whatnot. And to that end, uh, and with other people I've actually spoken to do memoirs, they're like, I'd have to wait for a bunch of people to be dead, because if I was brutally honest and they're alive, I'm afraid I'd throw them under a bus, or I don't want to be that guy to put that out there. So I respect that. But for me, as a reader, who's read memoirs and just was like, read a lot of stuff that was a waste of time and paper, I'm like, if I'm going to do a memoir for Chef Curtis Duffy, I want to do something that really packs a punch and leaves no stone unturned. And Curtis Duffy was on board with that. And that honesty, brutal honesty, is something that as a reader, you're getting the full story. You're not candy coating anything, and then your takeaway is like, wow, that person really went say through hell and back or whatever, right? And they floored me because they said this happened or that. So, and that's stuff I can appreciate. And interesting thing about being brutally honest from the other side, the person who's being brutally honest, Christopher, is like in Curtis Duffy's case, he found it very cathartic to
mm.
do 60 hours of interviews with me to get that out, So that was a bonus. And then with the film Peter that I just did a premiere of in Vegas, it was a huge success. Doing a documentary with this is my second one. The other one is going to be coming out, is also about Curtis Duffy. Um, I told Peter, whose real name is Alvin Brown, for those who don't know. I told him, I said, "Hey Al, if we're going to do this Peter North doc, there's some things either you've denied for decades, like starting out in gay porn before doing straight porn, because the mob owned the studios back in the day and he owed them money actually. And it's a hell of a story. And then, he found out he could be doing straight porn. And, and at the time, between AIDS and in that business, people wouldn't work with male stars who did that kind of thing, and and that's why he denied it for years. But that and he didn't want to be blacklisted, or I think he felt at the time some shame about it. So
Mhm.
then I sat him down with my partner, Corey Soria, the director, and said, "You got to tell that story and anything else that has come up in the news over the years. You have a platform, come clean, because there's so many docs out there about this business, if you will, the adult entertainment business, that are kind of like my takeaway has been kind of like memoirs. There's like sugar coated fluff pieces. They're not really giving layers, right, to make somebody three dimensional and humanize them. And I want that extracted from anybody I'm doing something on. Again, whether it's a memoir or a documentary, brutal honesty I think goes a long way. And I don't
Yeah.
think there's that, you know. And that's the way I roll in life as well, you know. So I just really think honesty is paramount, not only in a
Yeah.
life story, just in general, you know. So that's where I come from with that
Yeah, I
angle.
appreciate that. I think that there's so much importance in being honest to me. You said so many key things, right? Like when you have those conversations, it is cathartic because it's almost like therapy. It's therapeutic when you relieve yourself of some of these things that maybe are bothering you. But going back to my initial question, obviously you've been inspired by these people that you're working with to be even maybe more candid than you normally would be. But you yourself, were you raised that way, or is it something you learned along the way?
Yeah, I would say I was raised that way. Right now, in a nanosecond, when you ask that question, immediately first thought was my maternal grandmother came right into my brain. My grandma research, she really was always about, uh, that honesty's the best policy.
Yeah.
Be a good person and be honest. And frankly, throughout my life, going on 56 this August, I mean, there's been between girlfriends, relationships, and other things. I haven't been quite honest with some people over the years when I was younger, despite what grandma instilled in me. But, I grew up, Christopher, and I guess I'm like, what, just be a straight shooter, you know,
Absolutely.
not like
So,
you're going to be
do
flayed alive if you tell the truth, even if it hurts. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, I think it's a natural human instinct to wanna control the narrative, but, that's also because we're scared of what other people might think or scared of other people's judgment, and you have to, I guess, leave it up to God. Have faith in terms of if I'm a good person, I'm a good character, and I've made mistakes and I atone for those mistakes, then hopefully I'm not gonna have everyone you piss off on me, you know?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And going back to the Peter premiere, that section where for the first time ever and on camera, he tells a story of how he got in the business, and it happened to be gay porn, and he wasn't Peter North at the time, he was Matt Ramsey. And he came clean on camera, told the whole story of why it was a means to an end.
Mm,
And no one wants the mafia on them and potentially get your legs broke or dead or something. That's all on the film. When he uh, when that was on screen at the premiere, I know for a fact he was still hung up about it. It's something that was always being denied for decades, and he had that inside him, and he was like coming clean, but you could tell like he was like on the set, like, okay, wiping his brow and getting ready to say the truth and come clean, and which he did, and that was this doc's been in the works for a while. So when that premiere came and that part came up, he ended it with the Matt Ramsey era and whatnot, and it says something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, "It feels really good to come clean, and and I'm not ashamed of it at
Mm,
all." There was a round of applause for that part, and that made me feel good for him because that was a hang up. He came from a different era, and he did that, and we were able to get that out of him, Corey and me, and to see that support of all his peers and all these people packed into the premiere made me feel really good for him, because I'm sure that felt good, because there's nothing to be ashamed of. And that honesty went a long way, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's like the pimple effect, you know, everything is always subjectively worse than it is objectively. My
Mm,
business partner is a
mm.
writer, he loves horror, he's his own worst critique. He's like, "Oh, this is shit, it's the worst thing I've ever written." I'm like, "No, dude, this is phenomenal." When you get a pimple, you feel like it's the biggest thing in the world, but no one else even cares. You
Yeah.
know, we have to get over ourselves.
That's a great analogy, and you're so right about that. We get up on things that we think is, this glaring Himalayan mountain of an issue, whether it's a pimple or something else, and the
Mm,
rest of the world doesn't see it that way,
yeah,
and sometimes it takes you asking someone like, am I wrong here? I have an unnecessary, point of view of myself,
mm,
and getting some kind of reassurance. You're right about that. I just know that from myself. Hey,
yeah.
yeah,
Once you get on the I mean, once you drop something and you're on the other side of it looking back, you realize, like, "What was I embarrassed about? What was I ashamed about?" Like, my good friends are still here, and I can still keep going. Let me ask you, just because when I, was putting together notes for this chat and I saw the Peter North stuff, I was like, "Is this real? Is it serious?" I'm
hmm
46. I grew up in that era of the Peter Norths and the Jenna Jamesons, and the North
yeah,
Pole series. Like, I remember that stuff.
yeah.
How did you even link up with Peter in the first place?
I owe it all to my best one of my best friends, Corey Soria, and he's a longtime adult film director who has gone by the name of Craven Moorhead, and he had a company, or still has a company called Black Wings Media, and then um, he's still in that business, but he's also done a number of music videos. I think a couple independent horror films and whatnot. So that said, going back to Corey being in the adult entertainment business as a director for adult films, he got his break in the business from Peter North. Peter, again, real name Alden Brown, used to go into a store Corey worked at when he was a young man. I think it was Costco or something. And
Uh,
then um Al would go in there all the time. Alden Brown, him and Corey hit it off. So every time he'd go into Costco or whatever, he'd seek out Corey. Corey would help him. And then I think Corey joined the gym that Alden Brown worked out in and stuff, and they hit it off. And that's when Peter was still doing films for others, but transitioning into that North Pole production company you mentioned, North Pole
mhm,
Production. So Corey was a part of that, and the two of them, they've been together. They were working together. Peter a Peter North for Alden Brown is retired. He's 68, going on 69, I believe.
yeah,
And Corey got his foot in the door thanks to Peter slash Al. And then with that relationship, some years back, when my other partner at my production company, Photic Media, my partner Frankie Nasso, he's a like a veteran filmmaker. He did great doc on Harry Belafonte, for example, called Sing Your Song, and he won a Cannes Film Festival award for it, and I was really proud of Frankie. He's a phenomenal veteran filmmaker. So him and I were doing our own films, and then one day I was talking to Corey, and he's like, "Hey, I think I could get Al to actually do a Peter North doc, because if you think about it, Christopher, anyone that knows the name Peter North,
Mhm.
no, this guy's iconic, a legend. I mean, like he was like the real life Dirk Diggler out of Boogie Nights, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and and um and I'm like, I was already familiar with his story, much like Curtis Duffy, you know, Fireproof. I was fascinated by that human experience. You know, you got a kid from Halifax, Nova Scotia, named Alden Brown, who, upon graduating high school, his dream was. It sounds cliche, like Guns N' Roses, "Welcome to the Jungle." I'm going to go to Hollywood and become a model, or maybe I'll be a movie star, some kind of celebrity. And then when he got there, like other young people have in history, his life took a totally different trajectory. And
Yeah.
Alden Brown became Peter North. And when you see the beginning of the doc, whenever it comes out, that's kind of how it starts. It's like, "Hi, I'm Alden Brown, and I'm here to tell you how I became the infamous Peter North." And boom, that's where the film starts and goes. So I'm fascinated by incredible human journeys and stories, true life stories. And even with my fiction, some of the things that I base my ideas on are based on like real things that happen,
Yeah.
that fact me, if you will. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So, but all credit to Corey Soria for getting Peter in, and then from there, connected me with him and Peter slash Al, and saying, "Look, I'm going to write this and produce it and make it. Corey's going to direct it, but before I sink a penny into this thing and time and energy, please, I need you to be brutally honest. And
Yeah.
this is your opportunity to say whatever you want as well that people might not know." And he was in, and he came through. He came through, and it was really, really wonderful. So, but that's basically how it happened, you know?
That's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
so for you, the story is really important. Authenticity is important. I value the same things. I I'm a dad, so I always have stupid dadisms going on in my head.
Mhm.
And you mentioned the AIDS, and then like one not wanting to be covered in that. Sorry, covered in that sounds horrible. Not wanting to be associated with that. He obviously didn't have any issues, but he was trying to hide from that.
Right.
When you do his biography, the written version, maybe you should title it "Coming Clean."
Yeah. I like that. I like that. No pun intended, right?
Yeah, seriously. Let
God
me
damn. That's a great title. If that happens, now it's on record. I got to give you credit, dude, in the
Okay, I
book.
don't want the credit. I want you to be successful and for
You
you
know,
to be happy.
it's kind of like, if I'm not mistaken, and if I remember this wrong, whoever's listening and watching this, forgive me, but I believe a guy, Ron Quintana, who was a Bay Area DJ at, I think it was KUSF radio, had this show where he had played Metallica a lot, you know, mid 80s or early 80s to mid 80s and whatnot. And him and
Yeah,
Lars Ulrich were friends for a long time. And it was Ron Quintana who had, before the radio stuff and everything, way back, he had a heavy metal underground fanzine. And he didn't know, he had two names, I believe. One was Metallica and one was Metal Mania. And anyone could Google this, but it was like, Lars was like, "Oh, you should call the fanzine Metal Mania." And then Lars took the name Metallica for the band. And like, that's out there. So I mentioned that with you. If Coming Clean is a title of a bio I do, Peter North, you gotta be in the acknowledgments or something. I mean, yeah, credit goes where credit's due. So that's why I
I'll
told you
take
the Hannah story, because it's like, oh, interesting. Someone came up with that title. Would have never known, you know.
I appreciate that. It's important to pay respect. I agree. You said something earlier that I want to come back to. So, V13 Media Group is expanding. We started as the website. We've been online for 21 years. We started with rock, metal, punk, hardcore, and then eventually diversified into all music, and from there, culture, entertainment, and literature. And then about 3, 4 years ago, we developed a music promotion company, which is now just a full artist development agency. And we now have V13 Press, our own publishing arm, and we are working on our first half a dozen books now that'll hopefully all come out this year. Somehow, horror, horror and short fiction has been like the big topic, and then the other one is um, artist stories. We've got a couple, autobiographies and biographies that are coming that are really fascinating. You said
Killer.
that you had someone that was like waiting until other people die to tell the truth. What's the balance? What do you think the balance is of being brutally honest, but being respectful of people that you might have worked with, but that you still have like truths to say about?
You know, there's what one thing I guess it would depend how, say, that person was telling the story. It
Mm,
depends who they're talking about. Um, you could either push that person, nudge them, like, look, you want to wait till someone's dead, even if you don't work with them and haven't seen them in years. I get it. You're being respectful. Um, there's always names have been changed to protect the innocent, right? You could do
yeah.
that. I did that in Fireproof with a couple of people that I knew who would be, uh, irate about stuff Curtis said, that came out of his mouth. People that Curtis knew uh, very well would come out and be,
Mm,
name was mentioned or whatever. So changed a couple of names. And I also, for the readers, was very transparent, saying to change the name to this, blah blah blah, um, and it worked out great, and he told the story, so other people, it's like, say that same situation, it's like, look, you want to have a memoir, a bio that tells the truth and nothing but the truth. You don't want to offend anyone. You have respect. That's a great thing. You can be brutally honest and change a name or
uh,
whatever. And when I said it depends on the person, there are certain people who you could change the name, but you're going to know who they are just because they're like celebrity level or super rock star level, right?
yeah.
So I get that being a little bit tricky too,
Uh,
So um, the only thing I could suggest to those people is, again, could change the names. Um, you know, uh, do it the right way, but it's like, eh, don't make it a story that you're sharing that you want, or that you could share, that you're going to take to the grave, uh,
mm,
because that's a big component it's missing. Even if readers aren't aware that it happened, we know, they know, and it's like that could really have impact on a reader in
mhm,
in in one way or another, hopefully positive, in a positive way, or
yeah.
just like, wow, like, holy cow, depending on what the situation is, someone could be like, well, I feel better about myself. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um, so that would be my approach to
Okay.
someone who dug their heels in. I've had people that I mentioned that I've approached, like, hey, you should do do a memoir and this and that. And that's the answer I got. Like, I'd love to, but I have to wait for certain people to be dead, or you know what, I don't want to tell everything because I don't want to hurt anyone and whatnot, and whatever. I get that. I have a memoir that we my publishing company, Dead Sky Publishing, signed Mitch Harrison, Napalm Death, to
Mm.
do his memoir. And same thing, I said, you got to be brutally honest. And uh, there were a couple things where he said, um, I'm not going to name a name. We're just going to say, this is a promoter, or this was someone on this instrument, but I don't want to, I don't want to hurt anyone. So that worked out great because that's how we handled it. He came clean, but he also, with respect to his, nature, we didn't call him that person out, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
With
Yeah. I
Curtis
mean,
stuff, his memoir, he was like, no, I'm cool. I'm gonna just fucking say person did that or that, and then there are only two people I changed the names on, just because I know they're batshit crazy from
mhm.
knowing, and they go nuts. But we told the story, and I explained why, But
Yeah.
yeah, there's with me, again, I don't know about you, how many memoirs you've read, whether they're rock star memoirs to chef memoirs or whatever, but the share I've read, a lot of them kind of left me bored. Like, I didn't get
Yeah.
much on that. Some of it's interesting, but you didn't go here and you didn't go there. You know,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
what
I
I.
mean, I agree with you. It goes back to that first point about just being authentic, and telling it how it is. But there's that like that there's a balance. It's funny. You answered my question, and as you were answering, I was thinking about it. Maybe I asked from the wrong angle because I'm less concerned with someone not sharing enough. I'm too concerned with someone sharing too much. And then
Oh,
as the publisher, what kind of liability is there when someone gets pissed
right.
off? So is that is the simple answer just to change names based on who you think may or may not get offended?
Yeah. With the fireproof memoir, for example, again, the one name I changed, um, was because a former partner of Curtis Duffy's had been hell bent on just unfortunately ruining his career years ago,
Mm,
and he was also like a sue happy maniac, a businessman, the type of
yeah.
guy that would literally declare, come after me. I have FU money, like that kind of thing. So knowing that, it was like, well, I don't want to mention his name. People that know your story or Google you in your old restaurants in the New York Times or Chicago Trib, they'll know who we're talking about. And in the story, uh, that you could Google that, but like the guy's name, I what I decided on was, this is a really bad guy, and I was like, how can I get creative with working this out so Curtis can
Mm,
tell exactly what his experience was, um, without having some dude come out of the woodwork just to sue for fun, because he
yeah.
hates Curtis. So I'm like, oh, wait, uh, there there's this Greek god named Dolos, who was the Greek god of, like, lying, deceit, selfishness,
Mhm.
these really shady, nasty things. It was like the perfect name for this guy. If you looked up who this Greek god was, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's it. And that's how we played it out. Because you're right, as a publisher and a filmmaker, you want to really cover your butt. like making a documentary. I was on a huge learning curve because I had to get a bunch of archival footage cleared and
Mhm.
um and some other uh photos and assets and stuff for content. And there were people who um either gave us stuff for a fee. Some people gave us stuff for nothing, which is great. But then there were some others who were like, no, we don't want you using that or mentioning that, you know. Uh in one of which um in the Peter film, I would, as brutally honest as I am, I won't mention his name, but I'll just say there's a drummer from a big 80s rock band who worshiped Peter North, dedicated 3 pages to him in his own memoir. And then when we asked him to be interviewed and wanted to use some content of his house from the old days from like MTV Cribs and stuff, him and his manager were like, no, you can't do that. We won't allow it. We're like, well, what about the adoration for Peter that he has? I mean, he dedicated pages to this guy in his memoir. And it was like, no, we don't want to be associated with it. So like, um, we, I've got a legal team for films and, books, but at the publishing company, just for those reasons to cover our butt. But my legal team, when I told them the story, they were like, "You're telling me that guy is like, and his manager are that hardcore about not wanting to be in the film despite all
Yeah.
the stuff?" Oh yeah, and he's like, "Did he suddenly find Jesus? Because this was a guy who bragged about, banging groupies and hookers and worshiping Peter, and all this stuff." And it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know what to say, but they got a real problem. So we have to go a different route and, license things that were owned by other companies to, tell that story
Yeah.
specifically. But that's
It
important for to make sure you're covered, And look,
yeah.
even if you're covered, um, uh, people could still come after you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it depends on who your legal team is, and in my case, not just a legal team, but like for films, we have to get insurance. You have to have a legal review, approve it, say, okay, um, this stuff is cool to use. We don't see like say the subject of defamation. This is free and clear. This is good. Or you have archival footage where you can't find the ownership of. Does that fall under fair use? And
Mhm.
lawyers review that. And once they review and approve, and if you tweak stuff, then the insurance company gets that legal report and everything. And once you get that insurance, then if anyone were to come out of the woodwork, you'll never hear about it. The insurance company takes care of it. Perfect example
Right.
is way back in the day, Howard Stern had that memoir he wrote, his first one, Private Parts. And I
Mhm.
believe he the publisher hired Lloyd's of London, if anyone's familiar with that big like I don't know, 200-year-old or something firm that can insure anything. Like I've heard of famous rock guitarists who've insured their fingers for millions of dollars through Lloyd's of
Yeah.
London. So I believe they actually insured the Private Parts book because it was Howard Stern. And talk about being brutally honest. He said stuff in that thing where people could go, "Hey, you defame me, Stern. I'm gonna sue you." Uh, that's why you got lawyers and insurers, and you do your due diligence best you can to make sure that everything's correct. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like I said, some people will come out of the woodwork for any reason. You know,
Yeah, I mean, and
and
we
hopefully
said
that
it
to anybody, but
yeah. We said it at the beginning of the chat, right? Like that, you're embarrassed about things, or things will appear to you a certain way, you'll get triggered by different things. It's impossible to say how someone's going to respond. We've done a couple interviews with you, and you have this one line that I loved, and it basically said, if a book offends you, that's your problem. But like from a company and business perspective, it's not that easy, because you can't just say like, oh well, it's this is you getting triggered, not me. um, let's go back a bit, because as much as I'm fascinated about books, I want to talk about like horror and Jaws and music.
Hmm.
You're from Chicago, born in Chicago, and one of the things that like kind of tripped me up, because I've never been to Chicago, is this awesome little band that I'm a huge fan of, that reached out to me like when I was just starting up websites. Soil, and Mr. Sean Glass was so nice, and he's like, "Hey man, can I
Hmm.
send you some music?" And then I find out that you and him have worked together and played together. And I'm like, "How small is the scene? Like, how? Tell me a bit about the music scene there and how you fell into it."
Yeah. Uh, it's funny you mentioned Sean. I usually get a text from him every day about something. That guy has his finger on the pulse of metal news at all times, even before it comes out. So I've known Sean a long time, but the music scene when I was growing up, I'm from the northern burbs of Chicago. So I was born in a town called Libertyville,
Mm,
Illinois, which coincidentally, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine is from Libertyville. His mother was a teacher there,
mm,
and it's cool area. Just north of Libertyville is Gurnee, Illinois, where I went to high school, and we're Broken Hope, my death metal
yeah,
band,
yeah.
and did all of our stuff. So when I was younger, the Chicago music scene was fantastic. The metal scene's always been really strong, but just the bands that have come out of Chicago, whether it's Smashing Pumpkins to Ministry to
Mm,
death metal bands and iconic ones. There's Macabre and others, and it's always been a great scene. And but when I was younger, like in high school, when I said I went to school in Gurnee, Illinois, which is known for two big things: Six Flags Great America and the Gurnee Mills Mall, which is like at the time was like one of the biggest malls in Illinois when it was built. And um, like there would be guys in bands, and they were always cover bands, and I was always into metal and thrash and writing original music.
yeah.
And I just remember they'd always be like, "What the hell's that crap?" Can't understand the vocals, and they're playing like rat covers to, whatever and stuff. And I'm just like, whatever. I just cut the noise out, trading demo tapes of Broken Hope and trying to get our name on the map and going to tons of shows. And the metal scene back then, I'm talking like 80s to now, has always been strong. Just so many bands have come out of Chicago, and I think Chicago's got probably one of the most vibrant music scenes, period. If you want to exclude metal, just in general,
Hmm.
blues, got Buddy Guys legends. Chicago's a blues town, and just phenomenal music's come out of the city of Chicago. So,
Yeah.
but for me, the scene has always been great, always been really strong. And there's always tours and shows back to back. It seems like even more now. It's like sometimes it's like there's three shows in one night. Which one are you going to go to?
Hmm.
Metal wise, it's a beautiful thing. Whether it's a club or an amphitheater or whatever, it's always been
Yeah.
strong, and it's super strong now. You know,
It's a
I
good.
hope that kind of answered your question. You know,
Yeah,
as an
definitely. I mean,
observer from
it's a
Chicago
good problem to
in
have.
in a band.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have. I mean, like Common, even Kanye, he wasn't born there, but he grew up there. There's just so much music that comes from that scene. Um, how did you kind of fall into death metal? What was music first, then horror, then writing? Did it all happen at the same time? Like what was the arc for you?
I always say
Draws.
that writing and books came first, but
Mm,
I loved music, but I didn't play music as a kid. Um, I would play my parents' vinyl constantly. The stuff I grew up on was just constant music in the house, which was a great thing. And with my mom, she to this day is a voracious reader. I really got into what she was reading. Yeah, I went from reading like kids' books, uh, Maurice Sendak, Where the Wild Things Are, to
yeah.
soon, by second, third grade, I was reading my mom's paperback, like adult novels. And my mom has always had a taste for darker stuff, mysteries, horror, whatnot. When Stephen King first came out, she had Carrie, I had Peter Straub, Ghost Story, and on and on. And I just sort of got hooked on it. And I was always into creepy, scary monster stuff too. I'm like a monster kid. So with that, I had an overactive imagination, and I just started writing my own, you know, short stories, if you will.
Mhm,
So that I would say that the writing in books came first, and then when I mentioned that, I was always into music, playing my parents' vinyl. I had an aunt who was like a folk singer, guitar player, and I was always fascinated with her acoustic guitar. Like,
mhm.
wow, like I it wasn't like I was a kid going to concerts. I see my aunt play and some of her friends, and I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. Or how's that? How are you doing that? And the guitar was this thing in my head, like that is like an amazing instrument. And then when I got turned 12, I was begging my mom for a guitar, and I was starting to get into metal at that age. So it would have been around 82. I had all these albums by like Crocus. I remember Judas Priest Screaming for Vengeance had come out. On and on. I'm like, I really want a guitar, mom. Can you please get me a guitar? And she was dating a guy who was in a country band. And at the time I hated country. I have a different appreciation for it now. The older I get, more eclectic my tastes get. So
Yeah.
this boyfriend said, well, if you're going to get him a guitar, get him this, Epiphone acoustic guitar. So I got that as a gift. And not that I was ungrateful. I was super happy to get guitar, but also I was like, God damn it, I wanted an electric guitar. But she was like, I got you this guitar, enjoy it, and you'll learn how to play on this. And I ended up dicking around on it, and you know, not take I didn't take any music lessons or anything. I tried to learn some stuff from my aunt, and I ended up not taking it seriously. It took a few years,
Mhm,
early teens. Then I'm like, okay, I'm getting an electric guitar. I'm going to get serious about this. And that's what I did. I traded in that acoustic guitar for an electric guitar. Went to a guitar teacher who was phenomenal because he was not only like I was seeking methods, if you will, of metal methods, playing power chords and riffs and stuff. But I also wanted to learn some music theory. And my teacher had a degree in music. He was classically trained, just like Randy Rhoads was almost. classically trained. I even went to his recital when he got his degree. That's how early on I was with this teacher, and he could do all this classical stuff. And then he's in this thrash band. They actually put out one album. The band was called Numbskull, and they put out an album called Ritually Abused, which they were a thrash band. And so I got the best of both worlds, music theory and riffing. And I was always about writing my own music. I didn't want to play covers. And
Yeah.
uh, so right then, my friend, it was like, that was neck and neck. I was always writing, but then playing guitar constantly, right? And then when I formed a band, um, it was almost like the natural thing. Even though I don't sing, I wrote all the lyrics, because
Ah,
I love writing so much. And our singer, Joe, rest in peace, he was like, I dig your lyrics and, keep writing that shit. It's brutal. And I looked at it as like, hey, this is like, my lyrics are like micro fiction. I was trying to little horror stories. So
that's
both were going full time, writing and writing stories, writing music, and then probably it was in the '90s. That's when I'm like, I went from short stories and lyrics to I got an idea for a novel, and
uh,
I always use this analogy, Christopher. It's like a band's first demo. And I know from being in a band and have my first demo, at least for me, I thought it was the greatest thing ever made. Listen to our demo. This is badass. But in reality, it's like not that great. And you got more work to do. Keep working at your evolving your sound. And that's how it was with my first novel. I did one draft and I thought, I did it. I wrote it out. This is awesome. And then I soon learned, thankfully, working with pro editors, I learned, that you really got to learn the craft and have these skills and do this, whether it's talking in first person point of view to editing and language and tightening things up, is all a learning curve and working on that craft. So I really started taking that seriously, and I just kept going until I started getting published. And then,
uh,
oh, I pretty much write full time, whether it's novels, novellas, short stories, scripts, for film stuff, not just documentaries that I've written, but I've created TV series and things like that. And
yeah,
the great about that is it kind of broadened my skills as a writer because writing a script and writing a novel are two different animals. But I just love writing. I love even the stuff some people would think is boring and mundane, like the editing. I love the editing and doing a new draft and then going on to something else and then coming back to it, and it's all fresh again and new eyes and doing it till it's like, okay, this baby's ready. I love it. It's just
yeah.
all been that's my writing and music evolution, basically.
Cool. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And you inadvertently answered one of my other questions, which was like, go-to format. And it sounds like it doesn't matter if it's a poem or a short story or a script or a novel, just like write, get it out. So you've talked a bit about, your authenticity and how you feel like even more now than before that you want to be true to yourself and be honest with things. You talked a bit about how your evolution to where you are wasn't like necessarily I fell in love with horror and then it was this, it was writing and creation all the way through. What motivates you? Like what's your drive? Why are you so ambitious? Why do you wake up and you're like, I must do this?
Well, I I can tell you uh where where I went with my motivation and where I'm at now. Where I
Yeah.
start with my motivation is um obviously no brainer. We all know now. I love writing and I love writing music. Love writing books. Love writing riffs, super heavy music. I always tell people it's sort of like a yin and yang symbol for me. Writing is one part of the yin and yang, and music is the other. But I had all these other interests, art wise, one art being film, and um, I wanted to make original films. And I also have a publishing company too, but the publishing company happened kind of by accident. I didn't want to be a publisher. Sort of like I always say, I wouldn't want to run a record label. I just want to make the art and put out albums. I just want to publish books and not
Yeah.
be a. But that everything with Dead Sky worked out because I got a great team now. But that runs pretty much everything. And in time is a thing with all these endeavors. Okay, I don't have enough time in the day for it all. So that said, the motivation at the get go is like, oh, I want to dip my toe in this. I'm going to try that. And sometimes things just come to me, and I never do anything half-assed. I always try to make sure whatever I create and am involved with is of high quality, and it's really done the right way.
Mhm.
And what I found out is having 9 irons in the fire is a bit too much. And when I'm in a place now in my world where I'm like, um, with like the music, bands, touring and whatnot, I pick and choose my own battles. And the other guys in the band are kind of the same way too. We're at a point where it's like, all right, we've been there, done that, and we don't want to be on the road 8 weeks out of the year. And frankly, it's not a career by any means, for Broken Hope or Earthburner. It's not something like that sustains your livelihood, your life. It's great. It's great stuff, and I enjoy it, but just not doing the touring thing. And then with films, I've had a lot of success with that, but the time, the time to make like that documentary, Peter, and ever after the Curtis Duffy doc that'll be coming out. The time involved is so enormous between filming, getting archival footage, putting a story together on film. I mean, these things take years, and at the same time, I have works in progress. I'm talking my own books, right? And
Mhm.
it's holy shit, like you. For me personally, it became overwhelming because everything starts either coming out at once, or you're pulled in all these different directions. And the thing about doing movies and bands and having a publishing company is there's other people that I have to work with at all the time. So
Yeah.
with a band, you got 4 or 5 guys with the production company and making films. There's a dozen different people, and the publishing company. Again, I got a great team. They run it awesomely, thank God. So I'm not in the trenches. But just imagine like the publishing company too. That's at least 5 or 6 people that are working on that all the time at Dev Sky. So with that, I've got collectively when everything seems to happen at once with all these projects, I go merrily skipping into with, all motivated and like, yeah, I'm gonna knock this out of the park. When all of a sudden you got 30 people hitting me up with texts, phone calls, emails, and got to do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I need to clone myself. I need like 4 of me to handle all this stuff. So
Mhm.
in the last year, I've been working on getting more things off my plate, basically, just so I can get to a point where I'm just focusing on writing. And then the other interests I have, uh, don't have to happen at once. What stuff happened, I'm still interested in it. still motivated depending on the subject, film wise, or right. And whenever I do another album again, it's like there's
Yeah.
no push or pressure to do it. So, but I've always just I take I sometimes take the long way around to answer a question. But to answer your question, uh, I give good interview, Chris. So no yes or no answers with me. Uh, I like my attitude has always been like, life is short, make it count, and why not try this or that, you know?
Um,
And remember when I told you back when I was a teenager and I'd have other guys that were in cover bands saying, "Oh, you're that death metal and thrash,
yeah.
so, blah, blah, blah." Same thing with writing, people would be like, "Oh, no one's going to want to read that or this, back in the day." And I always cut that noise out. I had the wherewithal at a young age to know, like, all right, there's a reason there's a Stephen King or a Martin Scorsese or a Michael Jordan. These are people who worked super hard at what they do because they're passionate about it. When you're passionate about something, the way I see it, you're going to do it whether you're successful or not. Maybe you
Yeah.
like making, wood sculptures in your shop because it gives you joy. And then who knows, next thing you know, you got a shop and you're selling yourself. But that may or may not happen, but you still go in and do it because you like wood carving or writing or music. If you're passionate about it, it's not like you go in thinking I'm going to be a success and be super rich and blah, blah, blah. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I doing it because I love it. So everything I've done creatively, I've done it with pure passion from the heart and see what happens after that. But the whole point is I tried
Yeah.
in life. I gave it a go. I made my time count, doing
Yeah.
something I was interested in or loved, and that
Mhm.
that motivates me, if you will, when I get up in the morning and have my cocoa pebbles and I'm thinking about what I'm going to do that day, it's like, okay, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to try that onward.
Yeah. So you're super passionate, and it's probably something that you grew up with and only got stronger as time went on. Um, I don't know. I wrote this down a few months ago, and I can't remember if I saw it somewhere, if I came up with it, but I simply wrote, The soul's purpose is your sole purpose," and vice versa, and I'm like you. If I feel passionate about something, if feel like something is what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm all in, and I can't be detracted from it until it's done. Uh, I just recently chatted with Ryan Roxy, amazing guy, amazing musician, lead guitarist for Alice Cooper for like the last 30 years. And he simply said, enjoy the ride, you know,
Yeah.
just be present, be happy, enjoy the ride. And I think it sounds like you're doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that mindset. Enjoy the ride, you know? It's like, it goes back and as cliche as it might sound to some people, life is
Yeah.
short. It really is. My just this last week, two people unfortunately passed away. That either someone I knew or someone that was close to someone that I'm close to,
Uh-huh.
and like I'm talking sudden, unexpected death, like the kind of thing you don't see coming, right?
Yeah.
So, none of us know when we're gonna go, and with life, um, that passion of making everything count, it's not a cliche. It's like a real thing for me, And I mean, look at you. You said what V13's going on 21 years
Yeah.
you've been around, like I gotta applaud that because that's a long time and you're doing what you like and your scope is widened too.
Yeah.
It's not this metal stuff and books and whatnot. You have, culture and entertainment and all these different things. It's really amazing. So you're a perfect example of making it count, you know? And I think
Yeah.
who like in the short amount of time we have on earth, and I say this, and I'll tell you, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I'm going to say that no one wants to be miserable and be hating life and whatnot. Unfortunately, a lot of people are like that, and I'm guilty of that too. There's times where I'm just like, is cheerful and bright and encouraging others to be positive and inspire. That's all
Mhm.
from my heart. But for me personally, I've had my moments and times where I'm like, life sucks. I hate life. Blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
it's a moment, and taking when I felt like that, I've been able to take a step back and be like, um, it could be worse. You know, some people have it worse and whatnot.
Mhm.
And it's like, some things you gotta just, as hard as they are, you gotta roll with in life, but just make it count, you know,
Yeah.
strength and just accentuate the positive best you can, you know?
It's so funny that you said it could be worse because that's what my mom says. And when I went to university, I befriended this guy who was a few years older than me. I was 17. I came to the US on a scholarship. This guy was almost 21. He had done the Navy SEAL training, and he was the first person to kind of start instilling into me this like mindset of strength. And then my mom comes along and is like, it could always be worse. And I said, what do you mean? Like, what if I'm missing an arm? Well, you could be missing two. What if I'm missing two arms? Well, you could be missing a leg. What if I'm missing an arm and my leg? You could be dead. It could always
Yeah,
be worse. And
yeah,
that's how I start to shape my reality with like always be positive because it could be worse.
right.
Let me
Yeah,
let me
exactly.
let me ask you one last question because I mean we could pick apart the million things we haven't talked about Metal Blade or music or like all this stuff, and I'm sure there's like a part 2 down the road, but like
Yeah,
one of the things that I found
yeah.
fascinating that literally tied everything together, the horror, the writing, the publishing, the fun, the collecting, the music, Chicago, uh, was this interview we did via email in 2023, and you started kinda like a museum with Charlie Benante, and it was like Jaws and The Thing, and
Oh,
I thought it was so cool how you kind of, like, took everything that you loved, everything that you were involved in, and meshed it into, like, one project.
yeah, when you talk, this is a different type of passion. There's movies and things that I am very passionate about
Mhm.
that, um, so passionate about that, I collect things related to it. And I have like, basically like, I know what you're talking about. That's the Daily Jaws,
Yeah.
the Jaws fan site in the world. I did a unveiling of a life-size quint
Yeah.
that this great artist Nick Mara made. He made one for the effects god and director Greg Nicotero from The Walking Dead.
Mm,
Greg Nicotero, just like Charlie Benante, Ross from the Daily Jaws. I mean, that Jaws is like our favorite movie of all time, and so that video was me unveiling this quint in my Jaws museum, which has a bunch of Jaws memorabilia. Some is production used stuff, couple items of screen use. It's hard to get memorabilia from certain old movies because back in the day they threw a lot of stuff out. Now
mm,
memorabilia is a huge market. You get like prop store or heritage auctions, and they'll give you a catalog for the next thing coming up, and it's like that thick, and it's all
uh,
movie props and stuff, right? And so the Jaws, John Carpenter's The Thing, 70s Errol Leonard Skinner's my favorite band. So a museum with like you know old original vintage uh Skinner concert posters from the 70s to Ronnie Van Zant's hat or and 76 tour jacket and everything in between. And I got a Jeff Hanneman museum and those things. And when I say museum, they're like these separate, dedicated tribute rooms to these things I really like, whether it's Jeff Hanneman, 70s era Skinner, John Carpenter's thing on Jaws. I'm really into that stuff. And the other thing I like, like an art collector too, is I want to show this stuff
Uh-huh.
to people that come and visit. Like some people collect, whether it's memorabilia or art, and they hoard it, they'll put it in storage and not do anything with it. Maybe flip it years later. Me, it's like, I'm so glad and grateful that I am able to acquire this. And you know what? I want to be able to display it and share it with anyone that comes over. That's why I use the term museum. You go to a museum to see, you know, stuff on display and people enjoy it, So that's just how I roll. So those are like four things I'm passionate about, and it's one part insane level of passion collecting shit, fanboy
Yeah.
stuff, these movies and bands and stuff, to preservation and again sharing it. I put a lot into to making sure stuff is displayed nicely, protected it. Say it's a poster, museum quality glass, and just um and you could tie that in, Christopher, right at the end with the friggin' bow tie. That's part of making life count and doing things that you're into and enjoying. So I just like to surround myself with things that I'm really into like that, you know?
Yeah. I think it's so cool and also fascinating that you're kind of like at the crossroads of horror, metal, writing, artwork, the film, like they're all there. Who else does that? I think what's his name? Alan Roberts from Life of Agony. Like he's kind of in that same area where he's writing, he's doing books and comics and coloring and drawing and also playing music. So kudos to you for like merging them all together. It's such a sick journey that you're on so far. I really appreciate your time. I don't want to keep you. I want to pass the mic over to you for what I call the last word, the final word. Give me and the listeners, the readers, like a piece of sage advice, even if it's from maternal grandma. Leave us with
Yeah.
something important.
Um, well, first off, I just want to thank you for having me as a guest, Christopher. It means the world to be having me on V13. Thank you for your time and having me on. And to anyone watching this, listening to it, everything you've heard so far, just like to hammer home that you can do anything in life. I really believe that, but you got to work at it, be passionate about it. But I urge everybody to do what you want in life, whatever you're into and passionate about. And don't listen to anyone that says that sucks or you'll never do this or that. Just cut out the noise, make life count, and enjoy your time while you're here. And the last thing I'll leave you with, if I may, is talking about writing this month, Wretch, a new novel. Chris, this one's a bit different than my previous works. I'd say this is
Yeah.
more on brand Wagner, and it's almost what I would call a mashup of genres. It's like one part splatterpunk horror and dark crime fiction mixed together. So that's coming out February 24th. And people are like, do you ever sleep? How do you get anything done? Like I said, all this shit between the documentaries and the new novel, and whatever else is coming on the road. These are things that have been in the works for a while, and they're all just starting to kind of at the same time neck and neck come out, you know. But I'm doing what I love. You're doing what you love, Chris. So may everyone watching this go out and do what you love too.